Military Marriage+Double Cleanliness+Accompanying the Army+Space+Group Pet+Marry First, Love Later+Cute Treasure, Duoduo had been wearing books until the 1980s. As soon as she opened her eyes, she noticed someone next to her who was handsome, had a super good waist, and had a sneaky feeling for her abdominal muscles. While he wasn't awake, she secretly touched him again, patted his buttocks, and wanted to leave. However, the man grabbed her and said, "What's wrong? You just want to run away after eating and wiping everything clean." Duoduo felt guilty and made a promise, "Don't worry, I will be responsible for you. See you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock at the Civil Affairs Bureau." After marriage, the women in the courtyard looked at Duoduo with a pitiful expression on their faces, saying that the men in her family had a cold face and a hard heart, and did not understand charm. They would not hurt their daughter-in-law at first glance, but in fact, as soon as the door closed, it was him who begged for a kiss to stick, it was him who doted on him day and night, it was him who doted on his wife in heaven, it was him who made a fuss about giving birth, it was him, it was all him. Even more surprisingly, this man also opened up the space for her blood stains that had been hidden on her body for many years, helping her to hang them all the way. There were shops everywhere from north to south, and the entire house was filled with real estate. Who is this man in Chapter 1? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. A slight pain suddenly came from Duoduo's neck. This kind of pain, like the feeling of being bitten by a little dog when I was a child in the countryside. Wait. Was bitten by a dog? Does her family's bean buns bite people? How could it be? Duoduo suddenly opened her eyes and met a man without warning. The man's eyebrows and eyes are three-dimensional, his handsome face is like a sculpture, and his facial features are clearly angular, subconsciously moving one's gaze. Seeing the man lying on top of her, and her hands embracing the man's neck, her two bodies tightly pressed together. The man looked at her, frowned slightly, lowered his head and took another bite on her neck, as if dissatisfied with her sudden distraction. Did this man bite the pain just now? Duoduo suddenly turned her head. See the place, a simple house, a simple king bed. When she looked at the busy man with his head down again, in an instant, she knew what the two of them were doing. What exactly is the situation? Where is this? Who is this man again? More importantly, she is a self-disciplined girl who even had her first kiss. Why did she do such an outrageous thing with a man in bed? She struggled frantically, trying to push the man away from her and said, "What are you doing?" The man on her body was very dissatisfied with Duoduo's reaction. She looked up and a seductive voice sounded in her ear. "Duoduo, have you changed your mind? It was you who seduced me before, and you even gave me a medicated soda to drink, vowing to get me. Why, you're afraid now? Ah! What kind of words are these? How could I possibly say such a thing myself? She has always been a well-behaved girl, from elementary school to college, she hasn't even had a boyfriend. Not long after graduation, I joined the army of online authors. She is not interested in men at all. How could she behave well and do shady things with men here? And, where did such a rudimentary house come from? This just at this moment. A memory that did not belong to her, accompanied by pain, rushed crazily into her mind. She's wearing a book. I put it into a book called The Little Wife of the Chief of the 806 Dynasties, that I read before going to bed. The female protagonist in the text, Duoduo, is the younger sister of the captain of the Yun family village, with a comfortable environment at home. Duoduo has 4 older brothers on her, but she is the only daughter in the family, so she is spoiled and lawless by her family. Whatever she sees, she must get it. The male lead, Yan Junting, was originally the marriage partner of her cousin Yan Shaoqin. Because the male protagonist's mother was hit by a car on the road and had a car accident, and the driver fled. It was her cousin Yan Shaoqin who intervened and saved Yan Junting's mother. Moreover, we will also contribute money and effort later on. After Yan Junting's mother was discharged from the hospital, she also exchanged glances with Yun Xiaoqin. He insisted on having his best son commit himself to repay this life-saving kindness. Yan Junting worked in the military and was called back by his mother to get married. He only arrived at home yesterday. In the afternoon, Yan Junting came to find Yun Xiaoqin. Unexpectedly, Yun Xiaoqin was not at home, but was bumped into by Yun Duoduo. Yun Duoduo is a reliable beauty dog. Seeing the handsome male lead, he immediately had a twisted idea. She deliberately arranged for her cousin to meet at another place the next day. And that place is the house where the two are currently staying. When Yun Xiaoqin returned home, Yun Duoduo did not mention Yan Junting's visit, but went to the appointment on her own. Before going, she also bought 2 bottles of soda and a bag of medicine to put in the soda in the town. When she passed by, Yan Junting had already been waiting there. Just say that my cousin is busy on the way and will come right away, then pretend to casually pass the male lead a bottle of soda. Yan Junting looked at her and actually drank it. But unexpectedly, at a critical moment, she walked over. The original owner didn't get the male lead, but she took advantage of it. However, she didn't want to take advantage of this advantage. Although there is still one final step left to take, the current situation at this moment. The two of them were completely undressed and their bodies were bare. What should be seen, what should not be seen, anyway, they all looked at each other. As for what should be done or not, it's almost done. If this situation were seen by people of this era, she would probably be drowned by the spittle stars in the village. It's like this, but she still wants to struggle. After all, here, it's just the two of them. As long as everything is kept confidential, if you don't say what I don't say, no one will know in the future. Decide, just pretend that this has never happened. Yun Duoduo stopped struggling, pressed down in panic, reached out to push Yan Junting on her body, and weakly said, I said I made a mistake, do you believe me? Unexpectedly, upon hearing these words, Yan Junting's face immediately turned aggrieved, along with a hint of anger. He raised his head slightly and frowned, asking, Why, Yun Duoduo, now that you have it, you want to shake me off? What are you saying? You got it wrong, so who did you originally want to sleep with? Wait a minute. This is indeed what the original owner said, but why would Yan Junting know? But this time, the fact is that the clouds are already overthinking. Because Yan Junting's next sentence was, there's no way, let's finish what needs to be done first. Yun Duoduo doesn't know if she should be ashamed or upset. At this moment, she has no mood, no, they are not familiar with it either. That's right, she didn't suffer from sleeping with such a handsome man. But without emotional foundation, just sleeping like this, she can't get through her own level. Just as Yun Duoduo was lost in thought, a voice suddenly came from outside the room. That's it. I saw Yun Duoduo leading a man here with my own eyes, and I would never misread. Damn it. Clouds froze and froze. This seems to be the voice of her cousin Yun Xiaoqin. What should we do? She slept with someone else, and now, Yun Xiaoqin has brought someone to arrest the adulterer. After all, it was Yan Junting who reacted quickly. He quickly picked up the blanket that had just been thrown aside and covered the two of them. Almost at the same time, the door was forcefully knocked open. At the door, there is a crowd of people surrounding. Led by Yun Xiaoqin, followed by Yun Duoduo's parents, eldest brother, second brother, third brother, as well as Yun Xiaoqin's parents. Fortunately, both of them were already covered in blankets at this moment, and Yan Junting stood in front of her with his bare arms, just showing her head. A group of people rushed into the room. The two of them lay in bed like this, their clothes scattered on the ground in a mess. They both knew what had just happened with their toes. Seeing this, Yun Xiaoqin's heart was simply overjoyed. Finally caught the opportunity to crush Yun Duoduo. Yun Xiaoqin walked to the bedside, restrained her schadenfreude smile, and then reached out to point to Duoduo, who was protruding from her head. She followed the crowd behind her and said, "Look, I'll tell you, it must be Duoduo. She really came here to have a private meeting with a man, did I say it right?" Chapter 2. I competed with you. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Yun Xiaoqin and Duoduo are the same age. Yun Xiaoqin is only a month older than Duoduo. Because they are cousins, they have been compared since childhood. Unfortunately, Yun Xiaoqin is nothing compared to Duoduo. Duoduo looks better than her, comes from a better family, and even studied better than her when she was a child. She always puts Yun Xiaoqin under her feet. So, it's rare to find an opportunity to bring down Duoduo, she would let it go. She just came back from outside and saw Duoduo sneaking towards the small house on the side of the fish pond with a man. She knew it was not a good thing and called everyone out to catch the traitor. Upon seeing this scene, Duoduo's parents turned pale with anger. They were really hit by Yun Xiaoqin, a dead girl who was here with a man, but Duoduo's parents are protective of the calf, and in front of everyone, they will never do anything to their daughter. Duoduo's mother, Song Qinglian, walked over and blocked Duoduo, while also shouting at the people inside, "Men, get out of here." Upon hearing this, Duoduo's father and several brothers immediately turned around and, as they left, caught Yun Xiaoqin's elder brother. As the men left, Song Qinglian's gaze suddenly fixed on Yan Junting sitting next to Duoduo. She frowned and asked, "You, who are you?" "Yan Junting." Yan Junting was quite calm. After reporting his name, he bent down to pick up the shirt on the ground and put it on his body. Upon hearing this name, both Yun Xiaoqin and Yun Xiaoqin's parents felt familiar, as if they had heard it somewhere before, but couldn't remember it at once. Yun Xiaoqin also asked, "Yan Junting, is this name so familiar?" Yun Xiaoqin and Yan Junting have never met before, but Yan Junting's mother mentioned Yan Junting's name in front of Yun Xiaoqin and them, so they are not very familiar with him. Watching the reaction of Yun Xiaoqin and her family, Duoduo almost didn't laugh out loud. Is Yun Xiaoqin a pig? She keeps clamoring to get married every day, but she doesn't even know her wedding partner who is in front of her. At the moment when Duoduo grinned silently, he was caught straight by Yan Junting. Yan Junting gave her a complex look in his eyes, and then, kindly, reminded Yun Xiaoqin, "Think seriously, what is the name of your marriage partner?" Speaking of this, Yun Xiaoqin immediately remembered that her partner was called Yan Junting. So this man is it her partner? Duoduo slept with her man. Yun Xiaoqin finally realized this. She immediately turned even redder under her eyes and was about to pounce on Duoduo. "Ah, Duoduo, I'm fighting with you." Duoduo's temperament is not to be underestimated. She reached out to pick up a piece of clothing and quickly picked up the closest one to her, jumping out of bed to face the battle. Anyway, Duoduo is not used to being beaten. Yun Xiaoqin on this side naturally didn't want to be outdone, so she grabbed at Duoduo's face with both hands. Her nails were sharp, and if they landed on Duoduo's face, it would definitely be a bloody claw. But Duoduo's speed was so fast that as soon as Yun Xiaoqin's hand reached out, she reached out and locked Yun Xiaoqin's hands, then locked them back and said, "Yun Xiaoqin, have something to say." Yun Xiaoqin couldn't move in an instant, and she shouted loudly, "Mom, come help me." Seeing this, Lu Cixi, the old lady of Yun Xiaoqin, was about to step forward, but she was stopped by Yan Junting before she could take action. Yan Junting glanced at Duoduo, who was only wearing his shirt at the moment, revealing a pair of fair long legs. His throat tightened and he shouted to Yun Xiaoqin and the others, "Stop it, you guys go out first, let's tidy up before we talk." Yun Xiaoqin was nauseous to death, of course unwilling to let go, shouting to fight against Duoduo, but in the end, Song Qinglian dragged her out directly. After everyone left, Yan Junting glanced at the shirt on Duoduo's body. Naturally, it was not easy for Duoduo to take it off, so he put on his coat directly. Done, seeing Duoduo daydreaming all the time, still wearing his army green shirt. The shirt reached below her knees and thighs, revealing a pair of slender legs, making Yan Junting very untimely think of what the two had not done just now. Cough, the timing was not right. After coughing a few times, Yan Junting reminded Duoduo, they are waiting outside. Duoduo was still immersed in her surprise when she suddenly dressed up well in the 1980s, feeling a bit stunned and slow to react. This is a strange place, surrounded by strangers, and she didn't know how to deal with it for a moment. Yan Junting thought she was afraid and whispered, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Inexplicably, Duoduo seemed to have relaxed a bit. She hummed, put on her coat, tidied up her clothes, and then walked outside with Yan Junting. Looking at the man walking ahead, Duoduo blinked. How could she feel that she was the one who was drugged? This man seems to I am very happy about it. Quickly, Yan Junting stood in front of everyone with her. As soon as she saw Duoduo, Yun Shaoqin rushed over and pointed at her, shouting, "Duoduo, you intentionally seduced my partner, didn't you?" Without waiting for Duoduo to speak out, Yun Shaoqin, also known as Duoduo's Aunt Lu Cixi, rushed over and glared at Duoduo, cursing, "She did it on purpose. She stinks and doesn't want to be shameless. If she wants a man, why don't she just find a man to marry? If she insists on robbing our son. Law, why are you so worried?" Speaking of this matter, Duoduo was also angry. The original owner really caused her a lot of trouble. She even wanted to find someone to settle the accounts with. Also, if Yun Shaoqin didn't bring so many people to catch the traitor, perhaps he wouldn't have made such a scene. She looked up in anger and stared at Yun Shaoqin and her daughter. Because Duoduo was half a head taller than Yun Shaoqin and her daughter, Duoduo's aura instantly rose, and even frightened Lu Cixi back a step. She was afraid that Duoduo would hit her. But Duoduo didn't take action this time. It's important to solve this tricky matter first. Perhaps it was because Duoduo was good at speaking that Aunt Lu Cixi took advantage of her. She glared at Duoduo's family and continued to curse, "How did you teach your daughter, and how did the cadres of the family take the lead?" When Lu Cixi said these words, there happened to be several villagers passing by the roadside, all of whom turned their heads to watch the excitement. Duoduo knew that this matter must be decided quickly, otherwise the whole village would come to see the excitement, which would bring a lot of trouble to her elder brother who was the team leader. She wanted to speak, but was unexpectedly taken over by Yan Junting. "This matter has nothing to do with Duoduo, it was my initiative." Chapter 3. Insights. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Yan Junting said this sentence while looking at Yun Shaoqin and her daughter. "You." Lu Cixi looked at Yan Junting and said unwillingly, "You are the object of our family's Shaoqin. How can you communicate with?" However, before she could finish speaking, Yan Junting told her seriously, "The engagement between Yun Shaoqin and me was my mother's wishful thinking, and it had nothing to do with me. I came here originally to say that I wanted to come and terminate my engagement with you." Speaking of which, he didn't care how ugly Yun Shaoqin's mother and daughter looked, and casually said the following words, "Coincidentally, I didn't make a special trip either. Our engagement has been terminated. You lent my mother the money for medical treatment, and I will pay you double. The money is here." After speaking, Yan Junting took out a stack of big unity from his pocket and handed it to Yun Shaoqin. Roughly estimated, there should be over 100 yuan. Previously, it was indeed because of this money that Yan Junting's mother liked Yun Shaoqin. "You." As Yun Shaoqin looked at the money, she hesitated to take it. However, her mother Lu Cixi reached out and took the money, quickly stuffing it into her pocket, afraid that someone might snatch it from her. "Mom, what are you doing?" Yun Shaoqin was so angry by Lu Cixi's movements that she almost vomited blood. She took the money, so she couldn't marry Yan Junting anymore. Such a good-looking man, still eating national food, isn't it worth more than this 100 yuan? But Lu Cixi also had her thoughts. She snorted softly, the man has already been slept by Yun Duoduo. Can you still ask for it? Don't waste this money. Upon hearing this, Yun Duoduo instinctively retorted, I didn't sleep. Just the last two words, Yun Duoduo said it in her heart. This is a fact, she really didn't sleep. But before he could finish speaking, he was taken over by Yan Junting. After scanning Yun Duoduo, he looked at Yun Xiaoqin's mother and daughter and said, it's good if you know, then the matter with Yun Xiaoqin will be clear. After handling this matter, Yan Junting quickly turned to Yun Duoduo and looked at her, saying, Yun Duoduo, if you don't object, we'll get married. Tomorrow morning, I'll pick you up and we'll go to the township government to handle the marriage matter. I don't. Yun Duoduo wanted to refuse, but her stern gaze made her shrink back. He looked at Yun Duoduo with a resentful expression in his eyes, as if saying, you have already taken control of me, you can't help but admit it. At the same time, there was a hint of intimidation in his eyes. If Yun Duoduo opposed, he had a way to make her agree. Yun Duoduo remembered what the two of them had just done, gave Yan Junting a pale glance, bit his lips, as if there was no way out. She didn't speak. Yan Junting assumed that Yun Duoduo agreed. He nodded at the Su family and said he would come over early tomorrow morning, then turned around and left. When Yan Junting left, Yun Xiaoqin seemed to suddenly react and rushed over, grabbing Yun Duoduo's hair and shouting hysterically, Yun Duoduo, you're so shameless. Today, either you die or I die. So you're really determined, Yun Duoduo said as she flipped Yun Xiaoqin to the ground. Yun Duoduo studied Taekwondo for nearly a decade in her previous life. Although she didn't make a name for herself, it's still easy to deal with someone like Yun Xiaoqin. Crouching beside Yun Xiaoqin, Yun Duoduo frowned and looked at her. Yun Duoduo, if you have something to say, don't use your hands or feet. The downside of using your hands or feet is that from childhood to adulthood, when did you ever beat me? You. Yun Xiaoqin sat on the ground, gritting her teeth as she looked at Yun Duoduo with a look of wanting to kill someone, but she couldn't fight and couldn't do anything about it. Looking at her, Yun Duoduo smiled faintly and slowly spoke up, also, on the day Yan Mu was injured, what exactly happened? Do you dare to tell the truth? Speaking of this, Yun Xiaoqin felt guilty. That's right, actually that day, Yun Xiaoqin and Yun Duoduo went out together and found Yan Mu injured by a car. She was lying on the road, and the car that hit her was long gone. At that time, Yun Xiaoqin said not to meddle in her own affairs, as she was someone she didn't know. However, Yun Duoduo saw Yan's mother lying on the ground in the winter and felt quite pitiful, so she insisted on sending her to the town clinic. Later, a tractor from the village happened to be transporting goods to the town, and the driver also saw Yun Duoduo as the team leader, so he was willing to help take an injured person to the hospital. After arriving at the hospital, Yun Duoduo asked Yun Xiaoqin to take care of Yan's mother. She went to pay and hire a doctor, and then took care of her for half a day. But when the Yan family went, it was Yun Xiaoqin who took care of them, and then Yun Xiaoqin took all the credit on herself. The original owner, Yun Duoduo, doesn't care. She didn't save people just to be repaid, so she didn't expose the lies Yun Xiaoqin told. However, later on, I didn't expect so many things to happen, let alone Yan Junting being so handsome. The original owner was a handsome dog, and she really regretted not being ethical at the beginning. It's better to take action first and get Yan Junting first. So, when it comes to matters of the same level, if we really have to argue about it, the two of us are at odds. The original owner snatched someone else's object, and Yun Xiaoqin is not a good thing either. After waiting for a while, Yun Xiaoqin and Yun Duoduo remained silent this time. Yun Duoduo's mother, Song Qingnian, was worried that this matter would escalate and damage her daughter's reputation. She wanted to calm things down and whispered to Lu Cixi, sister-in-law, I think that's all for this matter. As you can see, the Yen family didn't take a liking to your family's Xiaoqin, but to our family's Duoduo. Xiaoqin's divorce is not a glorious thing, and besides, you didn't suffer any losses. You've taken so much money from others, so let's just let it go. When it comes to money, Lu Cixi is satisfied. In fact, for the Yen family, she is not so clingy. Apart from having Yen Junting in the army, the Yen family doesn't have any outstanding qualities. She also wants to marry her daughter to the town. Lu Cixi didn't make a fuss anymore, but Yun Xiaoqin couldn't swallow her breath. She glared at Yun Duoduo fiercely and shouted, "Yun Duoduo, I tell you, I won't let you go. I can't get married this time, and you don't want to get married either." After speaking, Yun Xiaoqin and his family quickly returned. Chapter 4 is too provocative. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. As soon as Yun Duoduo's family returned home and closed the door, Song Qinglian couldn't hold her back. She poked Yun Duoduo's head and cursed with resentment, "You silly girl, how dare you have so much courage to." Halfway through, I sighed and didn't know if I wanted to continue. It's obvious that everything has happened and everyone knows it. She doesn't need to repeat it time and time again. The most important thing now is to solve this problem. Fortunately, Yen Junting agreed to marry Duoduo, which was a place for Song Qinghe to breathe a sigh of relief. On the other hand, Yun Duoduo's father, Yun Daqing, had a more long-term perspective. He advised Song Qinglian, "Child mother, I think the child from the Yen family is quite good. He is tall and handsome, and he is also a soldier. I heard that he is still a cadre in the army. If Xiao Mo were to marry him, he should not be too bad." Song Qinglian remained silent, feeling that the young man from the Yen family was willing to meet the conditions. It was Yun Jifeng, the elder brother of Yun Duoduo. He walked up to Yun Duoduo, rubbed her hair, and said with a spoiled expression, "It doesn't matter whether he's good or not. It depends on whether our family is willing to marry him." Yun Jifeng is 28 years old this year. Due to his calm personality, he is one of the few high school students in the village. With the support of his uncle Yun Duoduo, he became the captain of their Yunjiatan 2 years ago. He is outside, which is a very serious personality, but for his own sister, he can be said to spoil her to death without any principles. "Yes, if you don't get married, well, why not get married? I'll keep my sister for the rest of my life," said Yun Jiwei, the second brother of Yun Duoduo. Yun Jiwei's personality is exactly opposite to Yun Jifeng's. He has an outgoing personality and is very interested in doing business. Since the opening up of individual businesses in the country, he has been constantly tinkering with doing business and wanting to make a name for himself. But like Yun Jifeng, he dotes on the girls in his family, placing them on the tip of his heart. There is only one younger sister among the 3 brothers in the family, and she is still the youngest. Can we not get used to it? Then Yun Jijia, the third in the Cloud family, also made a noise. He said quietly, "I know Yen Junting. He is the leader of the Yen family. He joined the army when he was 18 years old. He is still a cadre in the army. I don't know exactly what his position is. His family is ordinary. His parents are alive, and there are several brothers and sisters below. Lao Sanyin Jijia has a stable and down-to-earth personality. He is not very talkative, but he is very reliable in his work. He works in a supply and marketing cooperative in the town." After understanding the situation of the Yen family, big brother Yun Jifeng patted Yun Duoduo's head and gestured for her not to be afraid. "Little sister, the most important thing is what you think. If you want to get married, big brother will immediately get you a dowry. If you don't want to get married, big brother, I will spare my life and solve this matter for you. I promise no one will dare to laugh at you." When others heard this, they immediately nodded. Even if Yun Duoduo did something wrong, what would happen? It's still their little treasure. Looking at the caring eyes of his elder brother and his family, Yun Duoduo's eyes were slightly moist. She was an orphan in her previous life and grew up in an orphanage. Her only brother was also separated for some reason and never met again. She didn't expect that coming here would give her such a good family. The original owner did such an outrageous thing, and the family didn't blame her, yet they still protected her so much. She was too moved. Perhaps, coming here is God's compensation for her. She has decided that since she has arrived, she will stay here with peace of mind, and these people will be her closest family in the future. Seeing tears filling her eyes, Song Qinglian immediately hugged her and wiped away her tears. Silly girl, don't cry. With parents and brothers around, all you need to say is, will you marry or not? Duoduo knew that based on the degree of indulgence her family had towards her, even if she didn't get married, there was still a way for her family to take care of her. It was really not possible. She stayed with her mother's family for a lifetime, and it was not bad. But she knew that in this era, there was already feudalism and conservatism. When this matter was spread, even the family members had no face, especially his elder brother who was still a cadre. If someone caught him, it would have a great impact on him. Furthermore, when Yan Junting was about to leave just now, Duoduo felt quite guilty. If she didn't agree to marry him, what difference would she have with those who started and gave up? The important thing is, just look at it this way, all the conditions are good, and such a man should not be wasted. With this thought, she strengthened her willpower and nodded confidently as she looked at her family, I'll get married. Duoduo, you. Song Qinglian looked at Duoduo, her eyes turning red. Although she knew that the end could only be like this, her daughter, who has been in love for 18 years, was going to marry. She was not prepared at all. The other men's noses were also a bit sore at this time. Their little baby was about to become someone else's wife, so I was really reluctant to part. Unable to bear it, Yunduqing gently advised Song Qinglian, it's okay, the child is not far away, just in the neighboring village. You can come back anytime you want. Song Qinglian nodded, wiped away her tears, and began to instruct the boss, don't be too stunned. Go to the team and send a letter of introduction to your sister. Tomorrow, I will apply for a marriage certificate and need a letter of introduction. Yun Jifeng nodded and turned around to go out. The other brothers also went out silently. Song Qinglian wanted to say something, but when she saw her daughter's appearance, she didn't say anything. She just touched Duoduo's head and whispered, you take a break for a while. When it's time to eat, I'll call you. After everyone left, Xia Duoduo finally breathed a sigh of relief. She could calm down and take a good look at these things. She remembered that there was indeed a plot in the book where Duoduo snatched Yun Xiaoqin's man, but the Yen family opposed it very strongly. Yan Junting's mother was willing to use death to force him not to marry Duo. She didn't watch the plot because she fell asleep. If that's the case, the Yen family probably won't agree. If they really don't agree, then it's okay to stay at their parents' house obediently for a lifetime from now on. In fact, she is not well prepared for marriage and is not very interested in men. Thinking this way, Duoduo seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Then, probably after a whole day of fuss and exhaustion, she unknowingly fell asleep. In a daze, Duoduo felt an itch around her neck. She thought it was her own little dog, Doubao, who was causing trouble, so she giggled and squinted her eyes, shouting, Doubao, let me sleep a little longer, don't disturb me. But the next moment, a crisp male voice came to my ear, Comrade Duoduo, if you don't get up again, I'll hold you and go get the certificate. Upon hearing this sound, Duoduo suddenly woke up and looked at the man in front of her with a surprised expression on her face. Yan Junting didn't know when he came. He sat by her bed and looked at her with a hint of smile in his eyes, as if he was still a bit spoiled. Do you know what's going on? Duo always has a feeling, as if Yan Junting has no resistance to marrying her. On the contrary, he is very willing to accept it. It's like they've been together for a long time, and it's natural for them to get married. But the problem is, she searched through all the memories of the original owner and had never seen Yan Junting before. It can even be said that she didn't know him. If it weren't for Yun Shaoqin constantly whispering in the original owner's ear that she wanted to marry someone named Yan Junting, the original owner wouldn't have known such a person. What exactly is going on? Is it appropriate for this man to do this in Chapter 5? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Without understanding, Yun Duoduo's gaze fell on Yan Junting and she asked directly, "So, Comrade Yan, can you tell me why you agreed to marry me?" Yan Junting looked at her and raised his eyebrows slightly, with a look of confusion as to why Yun Duoduo asked such a question. Yun Duoduo naturally remembered yesterday's incident and whispered, "Yesterday's incident, in fact, I can treat it as if it never happened. As long as you don't say it, I don't say it, no one knows. You don't have to be so aggrieved." After Yun Duoduo finished speaking, she was quite proud and felt that her reason was quite good. I wonder if she can persuade Yan Junting not to marry her. But the next moment, Yan Junting stood up and looked at her with a serious expression. "Comrade Yun Duoduo, what kind of person do you treat me, Yan Junting? I saw your body, I kissed your mouth, and then you asked me to marry someone else. I can't do that." The righteous expression on her face made Yun Duoduo feel a bit guilty. Did what she just said be too irresponsible? Forget it, just get married. Yun Duoduo also recognizes it. Looking at Yun Duoduo's appearance, Yan Junting suddenly stood still and stared at her, saying, "Comrade Yun Duoduo, you have two choices now. The first one is to get dressed and wash up within 5 minutes. This man now, Yun Duoduo, is very suspicious that this man did not see her as a future daughter-in-law, but rather as a soldier under his command in training. Look at his tone of voice, his military posture, and the rule that she needs to wake up in 5 minutes and wash up, but Yun Duoduo's body turned against her bones. The more this man treated her as a subordinate's military training, the less she cooperated. She sat up slightly, leaned half against the bed, and watched Yan Junting blink slightly. She tilted her head and asked, "What's the second choice?" Yun Duoduo never expected that she would just get up from the bed, wearing very loose clothes. This posture made one of her clothes slip under her shoulders, revealing her fair and round shoulders. Coupled with her mischievous expression, it was seductive. Yan Junting took a breath and felt the blood rushing up all over his body, almost uncontrollable. If it weren't for the wrong occasion, he would have had to take care of this girl today. Forcing himself to calm down, Yan Junting no longer stood in a military posture. He looked at Yun Duoduo with a smile, lifted her blanket, reached out, and hugged her waist, bringing her to him. He reached out to take his clothes and put them over Yun Duoduo's head. The action is rude, and Yun Duoduo wants to burst into foul language. This man doesn't look like such a rude person, but he has a lot of strength. The hand that was holding her waist was so strong that it almost broke her waist. It's really hard to judge by appearance. Yan Junting was completely unaware of his strength. While putting on clothes for Yun Duoduo, he gently pinched her waist with one hand, as if muttering, "Didn't you look quite chubby when you were a child? Why are you so thin now? What are you saying?" Yun Duo didn't hear what Yan Junting was saying clearly. She only heard the words, "chubby," and looked down at herself. She wasn't fat. A height of 168, probably less than 100 pounds, fat. But then, Yun Duoduo heard him muttering, "Fortunately, this place that should be chubby is not bad." Yun Duoduo looked up and saw Yan Junting's hand stuck slightly below her waist, her eyes also scanning in front of her. Yun Duoduo has to say that the original owner's body is very long, although thin, the areas where she should have grown flesh are really good, and her figure is much better than her previous life. Just, is it appropriate for this man to do this? Where are you looking? Yan Junting, you. Yun Duoduo blushed and glared at Yan Junting. She seriously suspected that this man was playing hooliganism, but she had no evidence. Just before finishing her words, Song Qinglian's voice rang out from outside, Duoduo, haven't you gotten up yet? As soon as she finished speaking, Song Qinglian pushed open the door and saw Yan Junting tidying up Yun Duoduo's clothes. Yun Duoduo blushed and looked shy. Song Qinglian is very satisfied. It seems that her daughter really likes this son-in-law, that's enough. She walked in with a smile and handed the things in her hand to Yan Junting. Son-in-law, this is the household registration book, this is the introduction letter, and there is also the proof from the brigade. They have all been stamped. Duoduo has already done it early in the morning. When Duoduo gets up, you should have breakfast first. After finishing your meal, go quickly and don't delay. Upon hearing this, Yun Duoduo looked at Song Qinglian and blinked, then asked, Mom, what are you calling him? If you heard me right, her mother just called Yan Junting for her son. In-law, and it was very natural. So fast. Song Qinglian knew what Yun Duoduo meant, but deliberately pretended not to know and instead asked her, son-in-law, what's wrong? Song Qinglian's rhetorical question made Yun Duoduo feel that she was asking too much. They were about to get married, and Yan Junting was indeed the son-in-law of the Yun family. What was wrong? However, what puzzled her was that her mother had a negative attitude towards Yan Junting last night. It was only after one night that her son-in-law and son-in-law started shouting, as if they were very familiar. On this side, Yan Junting also became extremely excited because of this sentence from his son-in-law. He smiled and glanced at Yun Duoduo before nodding at Song Qinglian, okay, mother, these are for me. When Duoduo is ready, we'll set off. As Yan Junting spoke, he took what was in Song Qinglian's hand and went out with her. Yun Duoduo felt helpless, so they went wherever they pleased. She got up and immediately went to the mirror to take a look, wanting to know what this body looked like. It has to be said that although the original owner's personality is not very good, he is really good looking. With big eyes, a tall nose bridge, and fair and tender skin, she doesn't look like an ordinary rural girl at all. Coupled with her tall stature, no wonder people say that the original owner is the village flower of Yunjiatan. The name of the village flower can indeed bear the appearance of the original owner. She simply combed her hair and tied it into two fried dough twists braids, which made her more flexible. Yun Duoduo is still very satisfied with this appearance. Lowering his head, he looked at the clothes on his body that he was still wearing yesterday. Due to the turmoil with Yan Junting, the clothes were already wrinkled and worn out. She opened her wardrobe and prepared to choose an outfit to wear. Opening the wardrobe, I was startled by the clothes inside. There are two large wardrobes in her room, both filled with clothes. Different styles and colors are very popular at this time. This family really doted on the original owner. At this time, material wealth was already not abundant, and being able to buy two sets of clothes for a person all year round was considered very good, especially in rural areas. In the 1980s, it was only just enough to have enough to eat, and the average family couldn't even eat meat a few times a year. But the clothes in the original owner's cabinet can at least make ordinary people eat meat a few times a month. In a daze, Yan Junting outside suddenly shouted again, Duoduo, are you dressed? Do you need my help? Chapter 6. Son.in.law really loves people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. No need, I'm dressed, I'll come out right away. Yun Duoduo quickly responded, not daring to let that man in. She chose a red checkered cotton jacket to wear in the cabinet. Although the style was a bit outdated compared to the 21st century, Yun Duoduo knew it was very fashionable at this time. This outfit was bought by the original owner at a supply and marketing cooperative for 10 yuan, causing Yun Xiaoqin next door to worry about it for a few days. She even secretly helped her with some work and wanted to borrow this outfit from her to wear for a few days. But in the end, Yun Xiaoqin's job was to help the original owner, but the original owner turned back and didn't borrow his clothes. Angry, Yun Xiaoqin got into a fight with the original owner. However, I don't know if the original owner has gained some weight recently, or if it's just this style. This outfit seems a bit small, and it's a bit narrow when worn on Yun Duoduo, but it's still okay to wear it. Yun Duoduo was worried that Yen Junting would really rush in and didn't have time to change. She tidied up her clothes and immediately left. Opening the door, Yen Junting leaned against the door and waited for her. When he saw her come out, his eyes lit up, but then he frowned slightly, as if wanting to say something. But just as Song Qinglian walked over from the yard, she saw the clothes Yun Duoduo was wearing and praised with a smile, okay, these clothes look nice and festive. It's great to wear them when we get married today. Go eat now, don't delay. Song Qinglian held on to Yun Duoduo with one hand and shouted to Yen Junting to go ahead for dinner. Yen Junting walked behind and looked at the clothes on Yun Duoduo's body. He frowned slightly and said, "Where is this good? It's not good at all." However, he dared not fight against his mother-in-law, thinking to himself that he would wait until he got married and talk about it tonight. The breakfast of the Yun family is very simple, including rice congee and mantou. However, compared to others, Yun Duoduo has an extra boiled egg in her bowl. This is a habit from childhood to adulthood. No matter what the family eats in the morning, Yun Duoduo always has eggs to eat in the morning. Song Qinglian said that eating eggs is nutritious, and Yun Duoduo is too thin and needs to be replenished with nutrients. Several brothers at home are also eager to leave all the good things at home for her to eat. As long as there is something delicious, they always put it in her bowl as soon as possible. After dinner, several older brothers were busy with their own affairs, including going to school and starting work. Song Qinglian also urged the two of them to quickly go and get their marriage certificates. Taking advantage of yesterday's news before it spread, she would feel more at ease in her heart. Yen Junting led Yun Duoduo to the door, where there was a 2-or-8 bar parked outside, belonging to the Yun Duoduo family. Yen Junting walked to the side of the bike without getting up first. Instead, he waited for Yun Duoduo to walk up to the bike. He reached out and hugged Yun Duoduo's waist, and with one hand, he lifted the person onto the back seat of the bike. Yun Duoduo suddenly took off and was startled. When she reacted, she sat behind the bicycle with a red face. Meanwhile, Song Qinghe and Yun Duqing at the entrance of the courtyard looked at each other with a look of relief and surprise. I thought this son-in-law was tricked into working by his own daughter, the boss. However, I didn't expect that this son-in-law is quite affectionate and very satisfied with her family's girl. People who don't know thought they were just a couple. In this way, they are also satisfied and afraid of the injustice of their daughter's marriage. After finishing, Yen Junting didn't forget to say hello to Song Qinglian and the others. Mom and Dad, let's go first. Okay, go and go quickly. Come back home for lunch. Song Qinglian walked out of the door and escorted the two of them to the town. Yen Junting rode his bicycle and only took 2 steps forward when he suddenly saw Yun Xiaoqin rushing out from the next door and blocking their bicycles, shouting, "Yun Duoduo, wait a moment." Seeing Yun Xiaoqin blocking their car, Yen Junting frowned slightly, stopped the car, and frowned as he looked at her. Yun Xiaoqin walked to the side with a proud expression and looked at Yun Duoduo, asking, "Yun Duoduo, are you going to town to get your marriage certificate?" "Yes, what's wrong?" Yun Duoduo got off the car and looked at Yun Xiaoqin lightly. At this point, Yun Xiaoqin still hasn't given up. However, Yun Duoduo felt that Yun Xiaoqin's appearance today was a bit off. It didn't seem like she was coming to fight or cause trouble, but rather, it seemed like there was an excitement of wanting to show something to her. Sure enough, in the next sentence, Yun Xiaoqin deliberately shouted at her, "Wait for me to go together." Yun Duoduo frowned, "Why are we going together?" Before Yun Duoduo could ask, Yen Junting, who was standing on the bicycle, spoke out, "What are you going to do when you come together?" Before Yun Xiaoqin could make a sound, Yen Junting continued to ask, Comrade Yun Xiaoqin, didn't the two families clarify last night? However, before Yan Junting could speak, Yun Xiaoqin interrupted him and said, "Don't worry, I'm going to get my marriage certificate today, but it's not you who got married." After finishing, Yun Xiaoqin arrogantly lowered her chin at Yun Duoduo and said, "Yun Duoduo, I can tell you that you are not the only one who can marry into the Yan family. Don't be complacent." Yun Duoduo rolled her eyes. Is Yun Xiaoqin sick? Which I sees her proud. If possible, do you really think she is willing to marry? However, Yun Xiaoqin's words made both Yun Duoduo and Yan Junting curious. Upon hearing her words, she also wanted to marry into the Yan family. Who would she marry? Yan Junting was very dissatisfied with Yun Xiaoqin's extremely arrogant appearance and politely asked, "You also want to marry into the Yan family? Are you sure someone in our Yan family wants you?" Yun Xiaoqin gritted her teeth in anger, but she didn't say much to Yan Junting. Instead, she turned to Yun Duoduo and said, "This is not important. Yun Duoduo, as long as you know, although we both married into the Yan family at the same time, our treatment is completely different. The Yan family's gift to our family is incomparable to yours." After a pause, Yun Duoduo became even more proud and raised her chin. "I am the daughter.in.law that the Yan family begged to marry, and you went to the Yan family against your family. Whoever is wealthy will be known by everyone then," she said. When saying these words, Yun Xiaoqin deliberately rolled up her sleeves, revealing the 2 silver bracelets on her arm. As soon as he saw those 2 silver bracelets, Yan Junting's face changed. He stared at Yun Xiaoqin and asked, "Are you going to marry my second son, Yan Qiuting?" Yun Xiaoqin smiled and nodded slightly. After listening to Yun Xiaoqin's words, Yun Duoduo understood that Yun Xiaoqin did not marry Yan Junting. In the end, she agreed to marry Yan Junting's younger brother, Yan Qiuting. She couldn't swallow this breath and deliberately wanted to fight against her, trying to save face for herself. As for the silver bracelet in her hand, since she deliberately revealed it, it must have been given to her by the Yan family. As for the dowry she mentioned, if it weren't for Yun Xiaoqin mentioning this, Yun Duoduo would have really forgotten. At this time, when the man's family marries his wife, they all pay attention to dowry. However, because Yan Junting is in a hurry to get married and her mother is not someone who wants to earn money from her daughter, she has temporarily decided not to discuss this matter. She wants to apply for a marriage certificate first, and before the wine is served later, the two families can slowly discuss it. But now, with Yun Xiaoqin's words, Yun Duoduo really feels that this marriage is hasty. She doesn't really care about these things in her own family, but if she really marries Yun Xiaoqin together, and both marry into the Yan family, their dowry will be vastly different. In the future, her mother's family won't be able to look up in the village. She doesn't care about dowries, but can she be compared to Yun Xiaoqin? Chapter 7. Intentionally adding blockages. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So she immediately looked up at Yan Junting, although she didn't say anything, her pair of flickering big eyes were filled with grievances. Such a gaze made Yan Junting's heart ache. How could he let his wife suffer such injustice? He frowned and looked at Yun Xiaoqin. Just then, suddenly a shout came from a distance, "Big brother, fortunately, you haven't left yet." Following the shout, Yun Duoduo and her companions looked forward and saw two people walking from a distance. A middle-aged woman in her 50s, with her hair wrapped in a blue handkerchief, wearing a blue khaki cotton jacket, and her face covered in wrinkles, recognized at a glance as Yan Junting's mother, Ding Meixiang. Walking beside her was Yan Junting's second brother, Yan Qiuting. Yan Qiuting is 3 years younger than Yan Junting, shorter in stature and slightly chubby. His facial features are 5 points similar to those of Yan Junting. In their rural areas, his appearance is also considered very dignified. Just, this Yan Qiuting, anyone who knows him knows that he's idle, not doing his job, like a jerk, running outside for half a month, and no one knows what he's really doing. Coincidentally, Yan Junting still wanted to find them. He walked up to Ding Meixiang, pointed to Yan Qiuting and Yun Shaoqin, frowned, and asked, "Mom, what are you doing?" Seeing Yan Junting, Ding Meixiang raised her eyebrows slightly and then pretended to remember it. She spoke out, "I forgot to tell you that my second son and Shaoqin were also going to town today to get their marriage certificates. I thought I would arrange for both of you to get married together. I came over to discuss with Shaoqin's parents and your parents-in-law." When she said these words, Ding Meixiang glanced at Yun Duoduo, her eyes full of dissatisfaction. Yun Shaoqin was the daughter-in-law she had chosen for Yan Junting. Unexpectedly, Yun Duoduo took advantage of her, but her son was even willing to marry this woman and said he would take responsibility for her. If she doesn't agree, he will go back to the army, sever ties with his family in the future, and never come back. Ding Meixiang dared not sever ties with this son, so she reluctantly agreed to their marriage. But she couldn't let Yun Shaoqin down either, so she convinced her second son Yan Qiuting to agree to marry Yun Shaoqin. Yan Junting immediately understood his mother's meaning. His eyebrows furrowed tightly, and he glanced at Yun Shaoqin and then at Ding Meixiang. Ding Meixiang felt a bit guilty, but still said firmly, "Your younger brother is not young. It's time to get married," and they're looking at each other. "I can't do anything about it. Even a fool wouldn't believe what he said." Yan Junting was very skeptical. Did Yan Qiuting know Yun Shaoqin before, and how did he look at him correctly? After taking a glance at Ding Meixiang, Yan Junting pointed to Yan Qiuting and said, "Second, come over." Yan Qiuting had always been very afraid of Yan Junting, the big brother, and he also knew that this was done by his mother improperly. He walked up to Yan Junting with some fear and stuttered, "Big brother, what's going on? What's going on?" Yan Junting pointed to Yun Shaoqin and asked him, "Are you sure you want to get married and marry Yun Shaoqin?" Yan Qiuting quickly glanced at Ding Meixiang and saw her nodding at him. Yan Qiuting also nodded and said, "Big brother, I'm at the age of getting married. I'll marry a wife sooner or later. Take any one." At first glance, this statement was insincere, just like what he had memorized. It was probably already discussed at home, and Ding Meixiang asked him to say so. After Yan Junting glanced at Ding Meixiang, he pulled Yan Qiuting aside and asked him in a low voice, "Speak well, why on earth? My mother gave me 20 yuan and insisted that I marry Yun Shaoqin. Yan Qiuting said to the truth after confirming that Ding Meixiang couldn't hear her before finishing speaking. Yan Junting patted the back of the head. Yan Junting glared at him and said, "So unremarkable, I bought you for 20 yuan. Originally, it was not possible, but he had previously partnered with someone to do business and borrowed money from them. He was about to repay the money, but his mother refused to give him the money. He had no other choice but to agree to his mother's proposal. Furthermore, he knew that Ding Meixiang had given many dowries to Yun Shaoqin. When they got married, he would coax Yun Shaoqin to take out all those dowries, and he could do a big job. He dreams of doing business to earn some money, opening a shop in the city, and not having to dig land in the countryside. He really gets tired of doing farm work. So, after much thought, he agreed to marry Yun Shaoqin. After all, he just married a wife, and who wouldn't marry him? Glancing at Yan Qiuting and then at Yun Shaoqin, Yan Junting's face looked a bit ugly. He felt that his mother deliberately wanted to marry Yun Shaoqin back in such a hurry, which was intentionally causing trouble for him and his wife. He was well aware that Ding Meixiang was not satisfied with his marriage to Yun Duoduo. Because she sees Yun Shaoqin as a lifesaver and wants to repay her kindness. Moreover, she went too far and gave everything that was originally given to Yan Junting's wife to Yun Shaoqin. The silver bracelet in Yun Shaoqin's hand was left behind by Grandma Yan Junting. It was originally intended for Yan Junting's wife, and when Grandma Yan Junting was alive, she loved this eldest grandson the most. Last night, Yan Junting discussed with his family and asked Ding Meixiang to prepare all the prepared dowry. After he and Duoduo received their marriage certificate, he would send the dowry to Duoduo's family. Anyway, in their rural areas, everyone assumes that the day the wine is served is considered the official wedding day. Ding Meixiang deliberately put the bracelet on Yun Shaoqin early and brought it over to show him. Yan Junting was very unhappy. He walked up to Ding Meixiang and looked at her displeased. "Mother, do you have to do this?" Ding Meixiang knew what Yan Junting meant, and she was still proud. She just wanted Yan Junting to know that even if he married Yun Duoduo back, he couldn't expect her to have a good face. She snorted, with a hint of pride in her expression, and muttered, "Fortunately, I have many sons. One of them is disobedient here, and another is obedient to me." Then, she pretended to be affectionate and picked up Yun Shaoqin's hand, laughing, "Besides, your younger brother is not young anymore. It's time to marry a wife. I think Shaoqin is a good match. It would be great to marry a good wife as soon as possible." After speaking, she pulled Yun Shaoqin's arm and pouted at Yun Duoduo, "Oh, I just like my family's Shaoqin. She is kind-hearted, filial to the elderly, and more importantly, she follows the rules and regulations. Before getting married, she will definitely not do those messy things, especially not seduce other men." Of course, Yun Duoduo knew what Ding Meixiang meant, and her eyes looked faintly at Ding Meixiang. She remembered that the book also mentioned this clove, and she didn't like the original owner very much. In the end, she forced the original owner to break up their marriage with Yan Junting. If it really breaks up, can she fully recover? This mother-in-law really doesn't want to get married. It's so good to be in my mother's house, with my father doting on me, my mother in pain, and a few older brothers protecting me. Why go to their house and suffer injustice? Chapter 8. This daughter-in-law was chosen by him from a young age. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. So, Yun Duoduo remained silent and allowed Ding Meixiang to say that when the situation got bigger, she pushed the boat and pushed the marriage. Although Yan Junting looks good, he is not good enough to let Yun Duoduo marry him regardless. On the other hand, Yunduoduo's old lady Song Qinglian was so angry when she heard Ding Meixiang say this that she wanted to fight with her, but was stopped by Yun Duoduo. She could also take the opportunity to see how Yan Junting would react, just like in the book. In the end, she couldn't help but say that Ding Meixiang could protect her. If Yan Junting could protect her, she wouldn't be so resistant to marrying him either. This man himself is quite good. After hearing Ding Meixiang's words, Yan Junting's first reaction was to immediately stand in front of Yun Duoduo, reach out and hold Yun Duoduo's hand, and whispered, "Don't worry, with me here, I won't let you suffer." Yun Duoduo bit her lips and nodded slightly, looking soft and weak. Such blossoming clouds made Yan Junting even more distressed. What did his wife do wrong to be squeezed by his mother like this? Later, he released Yun Duoduo's hand and looked at Ding Meixiang with an extremely displeased expression. "Mother, what other man do you mean? Yun Duoduo seduced me." The more Yan Junting protected Yun Duoduo, the more angry Ding Meixiang became. She angrily asked back, "Isn't it? Do you insist that I speak up about this?" Immediately after, Yun Shaoqin also helped Ding Meixiang, pointing at Yun Duoduo and shouting, "What's wrong, Yun Duoduo, you dare not admit what you did?" Yun Shaoqin, like this, really vented her anger through the same nostrils as Ding Meixiang. She's really like someone else's daughter-in-law, proud. Without waiting for Yun Shaoqin to finish speaking, Yan Junting glared at her and said in an extremely cold voice, "Yun Shaoqin, you go aside. There's no room for you to speak here." Yun Shaoqin instinctively took a step back from Yan Junting's expression, afraid to speak for a moment. Then, Yan Junting looked at Ding Meixiang and told her word by word, "First of all, I am not married, Yun Duoduo is not married, and there is no talk of seducing other men between us. Secondly, Yun Duoduo and I have always been in love. We have known each other for many years, but you just don't know. Originally, I planned to come to their house to propose marriage during the Chinese New Year, but it was just a bit early. Propose. Upon hearing this, everyone was stunned. When did they meet? Including Duoduo, he also looked at Yan Junting with a surprised expression on his face. Yan Junting looked at Duoduo and nodded. We met when we were very young, don't you remember? When I was a child. Duoduo searched her mind for a circle of memories, and it seemed that there was no man named Yan Junting in the original owner's memory. Seeing Duoduo's inability to remember, Yan Junting's expression was somewhat hurt. He talked about the process of getting to know Duoduo and said, when you were young, you once fell into a big pond next to the commune, and someone rescued you. You said to someone at that time, when I grow up, I will marry you. Remember to come to my house to propose a marriage. Duoduo doesn't know if this happened, but it must have been the original owner who said it. After all, it was when the original owner was young. Just as Duoduo was stunned, Song Qinglian on one side immediately nodded and said, yes, my family, Duoduo, did fall into a pond once when I was about 7 years old. When we rushed over later, Duoduo had already been rescued. Did you save her? After listening, Yan Junting looked at Duoduo and nodded, saying, yes, I was 12 years old at the time. As I passed by the pond after school, I saw a little girl fall into the pond and couldn't get up. I pulled the person up, and the little girl told me that she would marry me when she grew up. When Yan Junting said these words, his gaze at Duoduo was quite captivating. Extremely affectionate, as if he had been longing for this day for a long time. Yan Junting, you. Duoduo couldn't help but laugh and cry. Should we say that Yan Junting was precocious or that he was persistent? He also took what a 7-year-old child said to heart. At that time, he was only 12 years old and understood so much at 12. And did you really wait until this day? No wonder Yan Junting's attitude towards her before was as if he had already known her. No wonder, it said that she was very fat when she was young. The original owner was indeed chubby when she was young, and it was only when she became an adult that she lost weight. At this moment, although Duoduo knew that the person Yan Junting was referring to was not her, but the original owner, she was still very moved. Yan Junting waited for more than 10 years because of a little girl's words. After speaking, Yan Junting looked at Ding Meixiang and said, so, don't say anything more about Duoduo seducing me in the future. I originally belonged to her, and I had already made up my mind. Ding Meixiang certainly didn't know about these things, she snorted. No wonder their boss is causing so much trouble. They must marry Duoduo, it turns out that's the case. But at this moment, she also knew very well that Duoduo, the daughter-in-law, might not be able to handle it, as evidenced by Yan Junting's attitude. Thinking this way, she became even more annoyed by Duoduo. On this side, Yan Junting began to settle accounts with her. As for the matter of you marrying Qiu Ting, I have no objection, but there are some things we need to clarify. He pointed to a pair of silver bracelets in Yun Xiaoqin's hand and said, the pair of silver bracelets in her hand was left by my grandmother to my daughter-in-law to bring back. You. Upon hearing this, Yun Xiaoqin instinctively protected the pair of bracelets in her hand. She really liked these bracelets, and the carvings on them were exquisite and heavy, so they should be worth a lot of money. Yun Xiaoqin's family is not well off, and her parents still prioritized sons over daughters. She is so old that she rarely wears new clothes. How could her family buy these jewelry for her? It's rare to have something that belongs to her, and she definitely can't bear to take it out. Unlike Yun Xiaoqin, when Duoduo was born, she wore a pair of silver bracelets on her hands. The back became larger and her arms became thicker, so she couldn't carry them. Song Qinglian bought her a new pair and kept them on her hand. She didn't actually care about these things. But this is the dowry for Yan Junting to marry his wife, and of course, Duoduo will not prevent Yan Junting from going and getting it back. Ding Meixiang also glanced at the bracelet on Yun Xiaoqin's hand, but remained silent, as if she had agreed to Yun Xiaoqin's approach. Seeing this, Yan Junting was not in a hurry. He gave Ding Meixiang a faint smile and said, "Don't take it. Then when I go back to the army, I'll save my own money." "When will I save up all the money for buying silver bracelets? When will we talk about sending living expenses to our families every month?" Chapter 9. Holding on to your mother. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Upon hearing this, Ding Meixiang's face suddenly changed. Yan Junting left the army at the age of 18 and has been there for 7 years now. In recent years, with the rise of his position, Yan Junting's salary has also been increasing, and he has sent back more and more money to his family every month. With Yan Junting's support, his family has been living well. Once Yan Junting's salary is reduced, the family may not even be able to eat enough in the future. Ding Mei was so fragrant that she almost fainted. Unexpectedly, her always filial son was using money to blackmail her at this moment. What was even more frightening was Yan Chuting on one side. Without any hesitation, he immediately rushed towards Yun Xiaoqin and wanted to pick the bracelet from her hand. "Quickly, give the bracelet to my big brother. I'll buy you a new one when I get rich in the future," he said. Yun Xiaoqin was so angry that she almost vomited blood when she saw Yan Chuting's unremarkable appearance. This man is really useless compared to Yan Junting. But she still tightly covered the bracelet and refused to give it. Yan Chuting angrily shouted at her, "Whether my family can eat meat and live a good life depends on my big brother. If we provoke him, how will our family live in the future?" After all, Yun Xiaoqin couldn't handle Yan Chuting. Yan Chuting snatched the bracelet. Yan Chuting immediately handed the bracelet to Yan Junting. Yan Junting handed the bracelet to Yun Duoduo behind him, and Yun Duoduo also reached out to take it. A smile appeared in her eyes. This man is really good, not foolish and filial, with upright values and courage. His mother is not right, he cleans up the same way. Turning around, Yan Junting looked at Ding Meixiang again and said, "And as for those dowries?" He pointed to Yun Xiaoqin and said, "Yun Xiaoqin has it, my wife needs it all, not a single item can be missing." Those dowries were all bought with money by Yan Junting. How could someone else's wife have them, but their wife doesn't? Upon hearing this, Ding Meixiang was really anxious. She hurriedly said, "I don't have that much money. This big family wants to eat and drink. Do you think it won't cost money? How much money have you sent back in a month? Besides, didn't you also say it yourself? You can save money, so you can slowly save it. When you save up, you can give them a dowry. Why do you want to force me to death?" After finishing speaking, she pointed at Yan Chuting and began to sell poorly. "As for your younger brother, what are you doing compared to him? Over the years, you have been in the army, eating and drinking well, and it's so easy. As for your younger brother, who faces the yellow earth and faces the sky at home, gets sunburned like black charcoal every day, and his face is yellow and his body is thin from hunger." Yun Duoduo couldn't bear to hear this nonsense anymore. She kindly reminded Ding Meixiang, "Auntie, this is a bit too much. Yan Chuting, who is thin-skinned and tender, is even a few degrees whiter than Yan Junting. This is called black charcoal. And Yan Junting is called yellow-skinned and thin-skinned. Do you have any misunderstandings about him?" Originally, Yun Duoduo didn't intend to speak up when she saw the mother and son fighting, but she couldn't help it. It's too obvious. Yan Chuting has fair skin and is better than most women. He doesn't look like a farmer. Moreover, Yan Chuting still belongs to the slightly overweight type, whereas his yellow muscle become thinner. Even if she wants to sell out, she can't open her eyes and talk nonsense to this extent. As soon as Yun Duoduo spoke, Yan Chuting was the first to laugh, but he couldn't help it. For the first time, he was described as black charcoal and yellow-skinned, and his friends all said he was a little chubby. Ding Meixiang hasn't sold out yet. After giving Duoduo a fierce glare, she continued, in recent years, there have been many people eating at home, and there has been little labor. Your father and I have also been in poor health, and we haven't had enough food to eat. A few years ago, we were always starving. Now, if you have any objections, you are really heartless. At this moment, Yun Shaoqin, who had been honest for a while, came to speak up again and also helped to squeeze Yan Junting. That's right, I haven't seen anyone who cares so much yet. Look at the neighboring village. They went out to eat commodity grain, and he raised the whole family. He even took his younger brother and daughter-in-law to work in the town. What have you been doing for your family after so many years of going out? Yun Shaoqin's expression really made her look like a member of the Yan family. She couldn't wait to marry into the Yan family and start fighting for her own welfare. The more such a person is, Yan Junting cannot let her enter the Yan family. He didn't care about other things at home, but he had to make the final say. Yan Junting must marry a decent wife, at least not to affect family harmony. He coldly glanced at Yun Shaoqin again and said, "Shut up, you're not a member of the Yan family yet. You don't have the right to speak. Don't treat yourself as a member of the Yan family too early. I promise you won't be able to enter the Yan family's door. Do you believe it?" As soon as Yan Junting spoke these words, Yun Shaoqin urgently grabbed Ding Meixiang's arm. Ding Meixiang was also angry when she heard the words. "Boss, it's your turn to decide when to enter the Yan family. It's my the final say whether she can enter the Yan family, including your daughter-in-law. It's my the final say whether to enter the Yan family." Upon hearing this, Yan Junting looked at Ding Meixiang on one side, his gaze also extremely strong. At this moment, Ding Meixiang is very angry. She is a very strong person. Yan Junting's biological father, Yan Gusheng, is introverted and weak in personality. He only knows how to bury his head in work, so she can be said to be in charge of the Yan family. She gave birth to several children, and they were all obedient. At least a few years ago, no one dared to refute her, but Yan Junting went out for a few years and came back with his own ideas. As a biological mother, she can also accept that her son has his own ideas, but what she cannot accept is that Yan Junting is constantly arguing with her for the sake of Yun Duoduo. The Yun family had already caused trouble last night, and she even tried to force Yan Junting to marry Yun Shaoqin with death. Yan Junting remained unmoved and insisted on marrying Yun Duoduo. My daughter-in-law has already taught her son to be so devoted to opposing her before she even goes through the door. Can she not be angry? She thought about it all night before coming up with this trick, asking her second son to marry Yun Shaoqin. They are also from the neighboring village, and they can be considered to have a deep understanding. She knows that Yun Duoduo and Yun Shaoqin are not compatible, so she deliberately promotes and stomps on one, which is to deliberately add obstacles to Yun Duoduo. The best way is to let Yun Duoduo know the difficulties and retreat on their own. Unexpectedly, before Yun Duoduo could make a move, her own son had already engaged in a fight with her. Yan Junting could not see his mother's mind, and he would not get used to it. Before marrying a daughter-in-law, what his mother said at home was okay for them to suffer some injustice as children, but why did his daughter-in-law suffer injustice? He is also as precious as pearls in his mother's family. After marrying him, he will be bullied by his mother-in-law. Why? Yan Junting didn't argue with Ding Meixiang in his mouth, it didn't mean much. He knew how to make Ding Meixiang compromise. He nodded coldly and said, "Okay, then as you said, I'll save the money for the dowry myself. You don't have to pay for it. I got married to my wife today, and I'll take her back to the military tomorrow. It's not my family's business in the future, so don't come to me if you have anything to do." Chapter 10. Getting Faced Too Quickly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Of course, Ding Meixiang knew what Yan Junting meant. What she was most afraid of was this, but if she just relied on Yan Junting like this, she wouldn't be willing. She was the one in charge. She immediately grabbed Yan Junting in anger and howled, "You, Yan Junting, if you dare to do this, I will report it. I will go to the brigade to call for cadres to reason, but I want to ask what the reason is for my son's parents who don't care." Yan Junting remained unmoved, but instead gave a faint smile and shouted to Yun Duoduo behind him, "Okay, Duoduo, call out your elder brother. Your elder brother is a cadre of our brigade. Let him speak up and reason." Ding Mei choked for a moment before continuing to howl, Then I'll go to the township government." Yan Junting still smiled and nodded faintly, "Okay, call Uncle Duoduo over. Her uncle is specifically responsible for handling these matters, and you're too lazy to go there. This no road is really impassable, there's no way to deal with Yan Junting anymore, and he's starting to play tricks." She sat down on the ground and began to shout and scream, "Heavenly King, how are you living these days? My wife hasn't even been here yet, so." Just her shouting couldn't scare Yan Junting. Yan Junting just glanced lightly at her and pointed in the direction of his home. "If you like to shout back, don't shout here. It will make the whole village come and see the excitement later. You will be the one to lose face," he said. Upon hearing this, Ding Meixiang immediately shut up. She was a very strong and shameful person, and she was trying to scare her own son. This son didn't get scared, and if it gets too big later, it won't benefit anyone. After all, she still had concerns about whether her son was a military officer or a cadre. However, her gaze was still unwilling. She couldn't control the matter of Yan Junting marrying his wife, and she could still control Yan Qiuting. She stood up and deliberately called out to Yan Qiuting and Yun Shaoqin, "Second, Shaoqin, prepare yourself and go to the town to collect the certificate. I have the final say about your affairs." Upon hearing this, Yun Shaoqin was overjoyed and immediately deliberately replied loudly, "Okay, Mom, I'll go back and change into clothes. I really like the outfit you made for me." When Yun Shaoqin said these words, her eyes as she looked at Yun Duoduo were full of showing off, indicating that both of them were the daughter-in-law of the Yan family, but her mother-in-law liked her. This alone made Yun Duoduo inferior. Yun Shaoqin was so enthusiastic that Ding Meixiang nodded immediately and said, Okay, go and replace it." When she said these words, Ding Meixiang's gaze at Yun Duoduo was also full of provocation. Seeing Ding Meixiang like this, Yun Duoduo's parents glanced at each other and hesitated whether or not to retract the marriage. With her mother-in-law like this, can her daughter marry happily? But at this moment, Yan Junting shouted to Yan Qiuting beside him, "Yan Qiuting, come over here and I will discuss something with you." Yan Qiuting nodded and walked to the side with Yan Junting. Yan Junting asked him, "Do you really like Yun Shaoqin? Do you really want to marry her from the bottom of your heart?" Yan Qiuting immediately shook his head and said, "I'm so annoyed with that Yun Shaoqin. She looks really ugly and has a big mouth. She's not married yet. She wanted to take care of me last night. In the future, I won't be allowed to play with my friends anymore. I need to do good farm work at home, otherwise I'll have to deal with myself. A mother tiger who works hard. If it weren't for this 20 yuan, who would want to marry her? I can find anyone better than her. Since that's the case, it's easy to handle." Yan Junting took out 30 yuan from his pocket and handed it to Yan Qiuting, "Okay, here's 30 yuan. Take it and tell his mother that you don't agree to this marriage. Let Yun Shaoqin go back where she came from." This. Yan Qiuting hesitated, thinking that he was going against Ding Meixiang. Yan Junting glared at him and said, "Don't you want this money? If you don't want it, I'll take it back. I don't care about your affairs in the future." Okay. Yan Qiuting almost eagerly accepted the 30 yuan, stuffed it into his pocket, and then ran to Ding Meixiang without any hesitation. "Mom, I won't get married anymore." Actually, just now Ding Meixiang saw that Yan Junting gave Yan Qiuting money, but she didn't expect it to be for this reason. She didn't expect Yan Junting to be so ruthless, nor did she expect Yan Chuting to change his mind so easily. She angrily grabbed Yan Chuting and shouted, "What are you talking about, you damn kid?" Yan Chuting felt pain and anger, and retorted to Ding Meixiang, "I don't like Yun Shaoqin. If you hadn't threatened me, could I agree to this marriage?" "You." Ding Mei let out several breaths of fragrance before roaring at Yan Chuting, "If you're not married, what should I do with these things I've done? How can I explain them to Shaoqin's family? That's your business, what does it have to do with me?" Yan Chuting glared at Ding Meixiang in anger and muttered, "Besides, aren't you just repaying Yun Shaoqin's life-saving kindness to you back then? You just need to repay it yourself. Why do you want to be so angry? My brother and I have nothing to do with us." At this moment it was Yun Duoduo's turn for them to laugh, and they slapped their faces too quickly, especially when they were slapped by Yan Chuting. Immediately, Song Qinglian laughed and deliberately shouted, "Yes, Junting Nyang, you want to repay your kindness so much. Can you find a different way? Why bother forcing your son to repay your kindness?" Ding Meixiang couldn't live up to her pride anymore. She grabbed Yan Chuting and forced him, "Yan Chuting, I tell you, you have to get married today or not. If you dare to run away, I'll break your leg." Yan Junting was not afraid of being beaten. He sneered and shouted at her, "Come on, fight, it's better to interrupt. After interrupting, you support me, I don't have to work anymore. I've been looking forward to living like this. You stinky kid, you." Ding Meixiang was going crazy with anger. One son was against her, and the two sons did the same. She grabbed Yan Chuting and beat him up. In fact, Yan Chuting is often beaten by Ding Meixiang at home, and he has become accustomed to it. However, in front of so many people today, he feels embarrassed and has also exploded. He reached out and stopped Ding Meixiang, starting to get confused. "Enough, you're so fond of repaying kindness. You can ask my dad to marry Yun Shaoqin back and become his mistress. Why force me to go? I won't marry. Don't say you broke my leg today, even if you kill me, I won't marry you. What's wrong with you?" After speaking, he pushed aside the clothes and ran away directly. Ding Meixiang was shouted at by Yan Chuting, stunned and unsure of how to end the scene. Seeing this, Yan Chuting was too lazy to pay attention to her. He rode his bike and took Yun Duoduo to the town to apply for a marriage certificate. On the township government side, there are very few people who apply for a marriage certificate. In addition, Yan Chuting is a soldier and has many special privileges. Many steps were skipped directly, but the process went smoothly anyway. After obtaining a marriage certificate, it didn't take 10 minutes, and then the two of them had an extra marriage certificate in their hands. At this time, the marriage certificate was still very rudimentary, without a photo, only the name and date of marriage. But with this marriage certificate, it means they are truly married in the future, and Yun Duoduo has no way out. Actually, Yun Duoduo is still a bit shrouded in mist, so she got married. On one side, Yan Junting looked at the marriage certificate in his hand, flipping it over and over. He felt excited and didn't know how to describe it.